Number 3 is Up. I don't understand why people underrate this film. So many people just say, oh yeah, it's got that montage scene, which is a brilliant montage scene, one of the greatest in, I think, of all of film. But people say, oh, it's just got that montage scene, and then everything else is, nah, it's got the dogs, it's so silly, it's got the kid, it's got the villain, it's like, who's the villain? I don't understand what those people are looking at. I can't get it. This movie is amazing. It's brilliant. This movie is so great. The animation is bright and vibrant. It's cold when it has to be, but it's warm when it needs to be. It's bright when it needs to be. It's dark when it has to be. Jeez, I love this film. When we see a journey, a lifetime journey from Carl and Ellie when they're kids, and that's again great kid moments in great animated films. It's not just kids and they're just annoying and screaming and everything. These are kids and they have dreams and ambitions. And I love how those carry over to their adult lives. They're like still thinking about it. And what's really great too is when they have those ambitions, they do it together. They're always together in this movie. They're never apart from each other. Until a moment I'll get to later, but when they're always together in this film, in the hard times, I hesitate to say that, break up that montage, but when the hard times of their lives, and the best times, and how they made sacrifices together, to live together, to be happy together, but Carl was always upset because she never knew that he was going to take her to Paradise Falls before she died, and it's so heartbreaking to know that haunts him to this day. It's like he made a promise, and he feels as if he hasn't fulfilled that promise. That's, to me, that is something that haunts you. I understand that haunts you, and when, not just when he has the tickets, but like, oh, that's just a big moment where, and then when he gets all grumpy, I understand. Russell's a great kid too. You know, this is a movie where it's like everything, all the goals that people have, it's surface level things. It's like, okay, we gotta get to Paradise Falls. I need to get my last badge for my Senior Wilderness Explorer certificate or ability, and I need to get the bird to prove myself. But it's the moments past that, what everyone gets after that is so impactful. It's not Paradise Falls that was important. It's not the last assisting the elderly badge. It's not the bird. There's another journey you're going on that is important. And before I get right into that, quickly, this is why I love dogs. Why I love animated dogs. Doug is great in this movie. All the side dogs are great. Because they're not just comical characters. There's a reason for them. They are something that was created by the main antagonist. There's a reason for them to be on this island, and there's a purpose to them. They have a reason to exist and to further the story. And that's what Dante doesn't have. He doesn't further the story. Doug does. Alpha does. That was the funniest moment when I was a kid in a theater, like watching Alpha, like this big, serious, stone-faced dog, just have this moment where he comes out with that. It's like, we better tell somebody had the bird, right, Alpha?
No. Soon the bird will be ours yet again. We will be able to track him down as soon as we can. Yes, that's what we will do.
And they're like, but like it's more serious than that. It's like,
no, we will catch the bird, and no one will be able to stop us.
and they're laughing. Like the other guys are just laughing so much at him, and then he just looks at him with a face of anger. It's like,
Beta, Gamma.
And they stop. And it's like that commitment to him being a stone cold dog with that squeaky voice. And then they change it so you know what his actual voice is and it fits. And it's like, please get back to the other one. It's a perfect subversion of the expectations, and I love it. And I love Doug in this movie. I love, and a lot of people complain about the antagonist, but I think he's a statement to that whole idea where it's like if you go for your goals, he's a kind of a mirror of Carl in a more angry way. Not angry, but in a more psychotic way. If you aim for your goals and let that consume you, you're going to be lost in some way. You're not going to really thrive in life. You're not going to find your goals. And he doesn't know that. And then I think he services the story, and he's also a menacing threat. He is he's a threatening character. And while some people don't remember him, I certainly do. And Charles Muntz. There, I got his name. I say I remember, and I have to prove I know his name, so I do remember him. But yeah, he's again, a little bit like The Incredibles. It's great to have that identity of a character you love, but then it's like, it turns on you a little bit. But above all, the reason that this movie is on this list is because of one scene in particular. It is not the montage scene, though. This is a scene I gotta dissect one time to talk about why it gets me emotional when I talk about it because it means so much. It's a scene where he's at his lowest point when he's left Kevin, given up Kevin, and Russell has yelled at him, and he's yelled at Russell, and he's yelled at Doug. He's angry, and he finally gets to the falls, goes in his house, and he just sits down. But it's wrong. It feels wrong for him he's he's angry. He feels alone in that moment, and what he does is he goes to the adventure book, and he pulls it down, and he looks through it, and all of a sudden he sees all of these images of Ellie and their childhood and of Paradise Falls, and he sees it, and he's like, I didn't do it. I failed her, and that was one of the hardest things to see. See him just to be so broken up about this, and the look that I always get from this movie is the music is brilliant and beautiful when he just closes his eyes and he looks up like, I didn't do it, I'm sorry. And he's about to close the book and he sees that last picture in the corner after it says adventure is out there. I forget what the phrase is that it has in that moment. Or this is my adventure book for when I go for my adventure. He sees the picture and he sees it, and it's their life together. And we see their wedding. And we see them getting, I think we get them the handprints when they're older together and all of that. And then there's the message, and he hasn't seen it since her passing. It says, thank you for the adventure, and now go on your own. Now go enjoy, go make your own. That's all it needed. That's what that film needed, and it's why I don't get why do people say this is not as great a film, because that scene is something I can't find. I can never find that in most live action films. It's beautiful, and it's so heartbreaking, but it's so hopeful, and it means everything to Carl. I gotta stop talking about that scene, but I'm gonna talk about it. I guarantee you, I'm gonna talk about that scene another time. But yeah, Up is absolutely one of my favorite films. I'm gonna watch it right after this. I'm gonna watch it right after this. Number 2. Again, very recent. I haven't seen this film until now. Spirited Away. Hayao Miyazaki once again comes on this list. When I first saw the poster of this movie, it's just Chihiro, no face, and the background is kind of haunting. This is a chilling kind of poster, actually. And I don't know what it means exactly, but it's like, when I look at it, I feel like I'm going to watch an epic here. I'm going to watch an epic journey. I'm going to watch an epic adventure. And yeah, that's what this is. This is an experience for sure. When you go down this movie, you don't expect a lot of what happens. It's another thing I love with, it's kind of a similar thing with My Neighbor Totoro. It's about a character who's moving. Except instead of being with a sibling and being excited, this person is alone with their parents and they don't like the idea of moving. And they're really upset, and then they're just kind of sulking and just like they're a kid. Chihiro is I think one of the best kid characters of anything of cinema. She's excellent because of the journey she goes on. She's a weak character at first. She's just sulking and she's just not really a brat, but she doesn't really do anything. She just doesn't want to do anything. But she's forced to, in this situation, she's forced to adapt when she goes into the spirit world. And she wants help so desperately. She needs people to help her, and they give her guidance, but they never tell her they tell her what to do, but they are not the ones who do the actions or say the things that she says. They give her guidance, but she's the one who makes the choices, and she's the one who decides to go through with it, because she could easily say no. And she could easily just stay in that spirit world, but she goes along with it. And she goes on this journey, and she decides she's going to make something of her life. I feel like after the end of this film, she's a changed character. And that's the most that you can ask of this. You feel as if she has gone through an experience that she is going to live with for the rest of her life, and it has helped shape her to later shape her when the next big moment comes along. It's not necessarily a permanent moment, but it's a moment where she will be shaped later on. And for me, when a movie can say, hey, guess what? You are going to be changed, and you are going to continue to change as your life goes on, and you have to adapt to these new circumstances and these new situations, that feels honest to me. That feels like something that someone would tell me. And what I love about this film, too, is how creative it is. I wouldn't be surprised if, all of these characters were something that Miyazaki created. They're inspired by Japanese ideas, but with the culture, but they're his creations. Because it just makes sense. Of course he would do that. It's just stuff like the muck monster. That's something that he said was something that a friend of his, a story that he had. There was a river that was so polluted, and Miyazaki was there, and he pulled a bicycle out of the water. There's things that are in this movie. You can read into them, but even on their own, they are still shocking. This is one of those movies where I actually feel something is accomplished. Because when movies try to capture childhood, I feel like they think, oh, well, childhood is the small moments. They're the small milestones and yada, yada, yada. They're just the little tiny moments. I disagree. I think that the moments that shape us the most are connected to a scenario, a circumstance, or an event. But it's the little moments inside of that scenario and that event that are what shape us. The little moments in there, because none of the moments in this movie feel forced. They feel like they must occur. They feel like they have to happen, otherwise Chihiro is not going to get the full experience, and she is not going to adapt well. She needs to interact with Haku the way that she does. She needs to talk with the evil witch and her twin the way she does. She has to talk with the baby the way that she does. And No Face. I love No Face in this movie. Especially in the big moment where there's that big chase scene where that was like a shocking moment where he's throwing up. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a PG movie. But it doesn't feel like it's too distant for kids either. Kids can watch this and understand it and be connected with it. But adults can watch it and appreciate it and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that. I'm connecting with something here. One of the big moments that I knew about this film, but didn't know exactly what it was the train scene after No Face's big action moment. I didn't know what that was. And then I saw it, and then I was like, I get why people like this scene. It's a moment of pause. we've just come off of a huge moment of action, and we need a moment to just kind of set in and go, okay, let's allow for things to seep in and relax. That makes sense to me. Because you need those moments in life. You need moments to just kind of set in and allow for everything to kind of absorb and resonate. And that's what it feels like. And like I said, I feel like there's in this movie there is something that is earned, something that is gained, and something that is changed in Chihiro. I'm glad I saw it. Nothing feels out of place in this movie, and it's well worth your time. Number 1 is Beauty and the Beast, 1991. First of all, I don't have much of a nostalgic backing with this movie. This was not a movie I grew up with. I grew up with mostly like the Lion King and Incredibles and Shrek 2. This was a movie I watched when I was 18. And I watched it, I think it was just 2 or 3 months before the remake came out, because I wanted to see what this movie was like, because I wanted to see the remake. But then I was shocked when I saw this film. I was like, oh my, that was awesome. I loved it. And I was like, every part of it I loved. And I was like, let's watch it again. I watched it a few days, it was a few weeks later after I thought about it. And immediately I started being like, oh my gosh, there's so much to it. Like when Gaston says, how can you read this book? There's no pictures. It's, well then that's a little insight to his character, because, I think I annoyed my parents with this. It's like, he says that because it's like Gaston, his only important criteria with people is the idea of surface level image and appearance, as opposed to what's really behind it, with what Bella's saying, with the whole thing of, that was my voice back when I was 18, with the whole thing of like interpreting what they're trying to say in their inner monologues. Like that's what's important to them. And they're like, yeah, okay, we get it, kid, we get it, we get it, stop talking. But that's how I was seeing this movie. There's so much in it. Now you can read into it. There's so much richness. There's so much. That's my thing. I love rich and intriguing and I love stories and movies where you can just look at every little detail and pull something from it that makes sense with the character, as opposed to just an idea. And you're like, oh, here's something that could mean. This could be a representation of Marxism. I don't know. But I like to pull it and see, oh yeah, what does it mean? Why is it so important that the book is blue and that Bella is blue? What is the color importance of it? Why is everyone else in like red, green, or browns and everything? There's so much beauty in this film with the animation, and I love it from the very beginning. This is actually what I was talking about when I was saying that I was doing a project. I was going to do a movie review, an analyzed breakdown of why I didn't like the remake, because I do not like the remake at all. And I will get into that in some other time, but with this movie, the way I was doing the project was I was breaking down it scene by scene, comparing it like, side by side. And then it dawned on me, I'm just like, I don't want to talk about the remake at all. But I want to talk about the animated movie, because that opening is rich. The very, like how we are on the bottom of this forest, and the forest just is beautiful. And then we fly in the air, and we go to this castle. And the way that we know what is important with the prologue is the prince is in the middle of the frame. He's in 3 frames. He's in the frame of the camera, the center of that. He's in the frame of the wall itself and the borders of it. And then he's in the middle of the stained glass image itself. He is the center of this story. And then we learn all this other stuff. And then when we're zooming away from him, when there's the light of the rose is in the distance, and then all of a sudden there's a lightning strike, and the light is gone, and we still fade away. And the narrator says, as the years passed, he fell into despair. And it's like, holy cow! There's so much in that, and like you don't necessarily unpack it all when you see it the first time, but when you break it down, you're like, that's why it makes sense. That's why it's a brilliant moment, because organically it works. And when you break it down when you separate it, it still works. Because when you analyze it, there's more to it, but it doesn't just have to be analyzed to be enjoyed. There's a lot more I can talk about. I don't want to waste your guys' time with it. There's so much. I love how I love the characters and the little kid character, quote unquote kid characters. One thing that irritated me so much was when my father told me, I like the remake more because it's not as kiddie as the kid movie, and I'm like, what? What does that mean? It's like, well, the kid character, the animated candlestick and the clock were so, they were for kids. And it's like, it's not, it's childish. And I'm like, yeah, it is, because it's important for the kids to be enjoying the film at the same time. They couldn't watch Jean Cocteau's version, which I'll get into in a second. Jean Cocteau's version from 1946, where it's an underlying current of sexual desire and everything. No, of course a kid couldn't watch that. But they can watch this because there's the clock and the candlestick and the teapot, and they can enjoy it. But they're not just for the kids. There's a deeper level to it. They're part of the musical ensemble, and they're entertaining, and the music is great, and the songs are great. But I always say it's not just for kids, because there's something to read into when you look at the character of Chip, who I think is the most important of their characters. Because there's the scene after the big ballroom scene when Beauty and the Beast are about to go off on the balcony, but Chip says, "What's going to happen? What's going on?" And Mrs. Potts says, "I'll tell you when you're older." And they walk away. But Chip doesn't go to bed. He peeks in through the door to look. That's what the kids are doing. They don't understand what Belle and the Beast are talking about and what's going on a deeper level. They don't quite get that. But they can see the surface level. And they're interested and they're intrigued. Chip is a reflection of the kids. And that's why I love this movie. It's encouraging kids to look past it when they get older, but allowing them to enjoy it while they're young. The Beast and Belle, when they're just talking to each other, and there's just so much chemistry in this. I love the character designs. I love the designs of the Beast. Like, he's very sharp and big. But my favorite design of all of them is Gaston. He's one of my favorite character designs. And sure, you can say, well, he's so, he looks like a prince. He looks like the handsome guy. It's like, no. The princes in the older Disney films are very kind of smooth and static. They're very simple. They're not necessarily flowy, but they're not necessarily too stiff. They're gentle. You can tell they're the nice people. They're the good guys. Gaston is harsh and he is defined. He is, sure, chiseled. He's compact, so he's holding something back. There's something in him that the designers created. But he is so... he's so powerful. And you can see that in his animation. Like, the first time we see him in the shadows where he shoots his gun and standing, I'm like, wow, this is a big character. It's a mountain of a man. And as he progresses throughout the rest of the film, he's an excellent villain. And the same thing with the Beast when he transforms into the prince. The prince, he looks he looks like the princes from the other films. Nothing really special, but it's not about the surface that is important. That's for, the surface level is like, oh, that's a really cool design. But it's what was learned and gained from Belle and the Beast beforehand, their interactions before that's what they fell in love with. It wasn't the surface. That's what I love with Shrek 2. It's not the surface, it's what's behind the surface. And it's what the person is and who they are and what's in their heart. And what you've shared with them. That is what is important. And you feel it all throughout this film. But the most important thing, one of the reasons that I love this movie is that, and when I think about like the remake and everything as an adaptation, and I think it's really important. Adaptations are really important, and considering what kind of adaptation this is important to know why it's a good film. This is not an adaptation of the fairy tale, because there's a lot of things missing from the fairy tale that is missing from the animated film. This is an adaptation of Jean Cocteau's 1946 film, because that version adapted a lot from the fairy tale, but it got rid of a lot of the sisters involved. It has only two, and it has only one brother. It included the idea of a romantic lead, like this man who's trying to fall in love with Belle. It caused an extra layer of conflict with that when the Beast is trying to have her as his wife. And then there's the father. And then there's the living furniture as well. It's not as dramatic. That movie's a lot more subtle though, and not as dramatic and big as that film. It's more poetic. It's like a fairy tale poetry a little bit. It's a very artsy film. With this movie, with the animated film, it takes that and makes it more extreme. The Beast is bigger, and Jean Cocteau made it. That version was a cat, where it was a little not sure about what the Beast was in the fairy tale, but they make the cat huge, like a huge lion or something. It's big in the animated film. Gaston is a bigger version of the other hero, of the other lover in the film, and Belle is not just a statuesque character. She's she's creative. She loves books. She's more eccentric than everyone else. The father is a little bit more of a bumbler. And the living scenery is bigger than it was in the movie. And it's a musical, so those bigger elements work. And the brightness of the colors work, and the sets are huge as well. But it makes those subtle moments all the more better. The moments of emotion, like when the Beast sees Belle crying in the cell, his face changes. The moment when he's debating whether or not to send her off. When Belle is trying to get Gaston out of her house. And when Gaston is working through his whole, not insecurity, but just poo. Like, Belle doesn't like me, nothing helps, woe is me. There's so much in this movie that is in the best ways, it's heightened. And I think that's something the remake missed. It was remaking an adaptation of another adaptation, which was an adaptation of the fairy tale. But the animated film was its own thing. And it doesn't rely on either one of those other versions to exist. It exists on its own. It's all the better for it. There's a lot more I could talk about, like the idea that Gaston's eyes are blue, but inside he's an evil person. So like the idea of color is kind of warped in that sense. It's like, well, what is beautiful then? Is it Belle's color, or is it who she is? There's just so much, and I love it, and I continue to find more in this film, things that I love. But even overall, it's just enjoyable. I just enjoy watching this film. I could watch it over and over again, and I would never get tired of it. And that is why it is my number one pick. Thank you guys so much for sitting down or standing up and listening to my favorite animated films talk. I hope that you guys were able to find some films that are on this list that you enjoy. I hope that what I said was insightful in some ways, or you learned something different with movies that you already love. Maybe you don't like any of these movies, or maybe you're willing to give them another chance. Like, that's my favorite thing, when somebody doesn't like a film at first and then sees it again, thinking about it, and it's like, you know what, actually that was something I loved, and that is really good. Let me know. Let me know if you see any of these movies, and if you find anything that you love about them. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to see it, and then maybe I can love these movies even more. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.